Good morning, I'm Greg Harper, and here we are at Advertising Week in the United Kingdom and Advertising Week Europe, and I'm here with James Caan from Hamilton Bradshaw.
Good morning.
Good morning, welcome. And I gather you just, and of course I didn't know your show because it's not available in the United States, but I understand it's very similar to Shark Tank.
Yes,
and,
absolutely.
Really, that's actually one of my favorite shows. But you just gave a talk on giving advice to entrepreneurs. Can you fill us in a little bit of what you were saying?
Yeah, I mean, we were really just did a fantastic session talking about some of the lessons that I think the advertising industry could learn from, the impact of technology and, more importantly, the impact of disruptive technology. And we were just talking about the challenges that businesses face. And I suppose the key thing that I was sharing with them was, rather than being afraid of the impact of technology, that I think we need to start thinking about how do you embrace technology, because I think sometimes what happens is new ideas come together and people think, oh my God, I'm going to be out of work. When in fact, sometimes technology, I think, enables efficiency, creativity, and I think the really core message was, how do I make sure that this enhances the proposition that I can give to my clients?
Yeah, we are in violent agreement on this one. I happen to agree, as I said. But what technology do you think that the community is not embracing or is afraid of?
I mean, I think social media is still not there yet, in my opinion. I think a lot of the youth around the world have embraced it beyond any recognition. Mm-hmm. But I think some of the older generation, I think are probably still not embracing it to the extent that I think it has such a big impact on society, on businesses, and how we communicate brands, business ideas, etc. So I think the whole space of social media, in my opinion, is still not developed to the extent that I think is available.
Is that a regional issue? I mean, is that more in the European theater as opposed to the United States, or do you think that's on a global basis?
I mean, certainly from a European perspective, I think the demographics would be that 18 to 24-year-olds are massive, but I think as you get, up the rankings from an age perspective, the acceptability and understanding, I think, isn't there yet. And I think the media world has a very important role to play, because decision makers in large corporates are not 18 to 24-year-olds. And therefore, if you want to try and win business and demonstrate what you can do for those clients, I think educating the market to the impact or the opportunities that social media or even apps, for example, I've just launched an app for myself, and the impact it's had on my business and the amount of business we're generating on the back of the app is phenomenal. Now, a lot of people, I still don't think have worked out, how can I use an app to affect my business? How do I can use an app to communicate what I do as a business? So I think there are some exceptional pieces of technology, but I just don't think that the market has been educated well enough to understand the role that it plays in their businesses.
So it's sort of like when we went from radio to television. Everybody thought television was simply a radio show with pictures. So are we seeing the same thing here? We're moving from digital media. Everybody thinks it's internet on a mobile device. In fact, it's something totally different. Is that
absolutely right? And I think the use of digital, and what again, there's probably still not the impact of digital today, I would say, is 5 or 10%. I think we've got a long way to go in terms of where and how we use digital to communicate our messages in a much more effective way. I still think it's a very embryonic market.
So when you're looking at digital, I presume you probably agree that banner ads and pre-rolls are sort of the old school, dated, and don't really make it. So what would be your definition of a really good app or digital experience on a mobile device, for example?
I mean, I think it's horses for courses. I don't think it's one of those where one size fits all. Mm-hmm. I think it's about being very specific. I think it's about being very targeted, and it's about using imagery, using faces, people that bring together the collective message of a brand that enhances your experience and the way you communicate. I just think that the technology that's available today, I think the media world, the advertising world, needs to spend much more time and money investing in its people and training and development, because I do think we're scratching the surface. It's interesting, I own a business today that finds talent within the digital media world, and it's the only industry where right now we have more jobs than people, because there is such a huge demand. But we just don't have the talent available, because I think the economy and education and corporates, we're just not training people fast enough to impact what we can do.
Speaking of education, I'm sure you've seen what's happening, at least in the United States, with these new online courses, and courses are designed to actually bring education into the modern world. And the old mantra of a professor getting up there saying, "Open your vessels, here it comes," and lecturing is sort of being outdated as people are interacting. So, do you see that same type of activity happening for the younger generation that embraces the mobile phone? I think 62% of the utilization of a mobile device is now text, and that's in 3 years that's moved from from voice to text. Do you see that engagement now? Do you see the people coming out of school that have the tools, or is that why you can't fill the jobs?
I mean, I think the tools are available. We just don't know they're there. We don't know how to access the tools. I think the World Wide Web has got more content than you and I could ever need in our lifetime. So I have no doubt that content exists. It's how content is packaged and communicated in order to get the level of penetration that I think we need.
So we don't have that much time, but I'd love to chat with you more. But if you had to give a sort of prediction of where we're going to be in, let's say, 3 years' time, and I think 3 years ago we didn't have an app store. We just barely were surfacing the concept of a smartphone. Let's get it 3 to 4 years from now. Where do you think we're going to be in terms of the digital media capabilities?
I mean, I can anticipate a situation where literally we're going to be running our life off a smartphone. I think the impact of smartphones around the globe, whether it's turning our TVs on, whether it's turning our curtains on, whether it's looking at your second home abroad and seeing what the security system's like, whether it's connecting you back to your office, whether it's using, FaceTime. I just think that the use of a smartphone and the impact that's going to have on what we do every day of our life, I think will change our lives. I think we have not seen 5% of what is available to come. So I think, my message would be watch this space.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Good to see you.